It's a nice feature. Late in the afternoon some days, it's a really nice feature. 3 times with me. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. So, you've been on this journey with me recently of turning 50, which made me have to take a day off. No. Actually, it's been amazing. But one of the most amazing things about it was all of the notes that you wrote me a couple of weeks ago on my birthday. And I wanted to take a moment to thank you for that. It's, you know, in your day-to-day life, you just kind of do your thing, and you do your thing, and you do your thing, and you don't always know that you're making a difference. And some of the things that you wrote were profoundly sweet, and let me know that what we're doing here together is not only a blessing in my life, but that it's moving out beyond here, because I imagine that you take those things out with you and touch other people with them. And I'm so grateful for my relationships with each and every one of you. This thing we're doing together is really incredible and special. So thank you. So, did anyone else spend their beautiful, gorgeous Saturday, fallish, winterish day in their basement watching football yesterday? That's what I thought. So there's kind of no getting around it in our house, but there's this interesting thing that happened yesterday in the Auburn football game. And if you watch football at all today, as I know you all will be, I would imagine that you'll see highlight reels of it. So Auburn was playing Georgia. It's like a rival. It's a pretty good rivalry game. And they were ahead most of the game until they decided to mostly give that back in the third and fourth quarter, which was making people in my house yell at the television. So towards the end of the fourth quarter, Auburn was down by 5 points, and there was like 58 seconds left in the game when they got the ball back, and they did a couple plays that didn't work. So they're down to, I don't know, 8 seconds, 9 seconds, something like that. And they call for the long bomb. And you'll see this. So, you know, the quarterback on this team, not really known for his giant throwing arm, but he's doing all right. But there's this kid running full out, one of the Auburn guys, just running full out. He's at about, I don't know, the 15, 20-yard line maybe. And he's looking ahead. He's actually not looking over his shoulder, which is good because right behind him are 2 very large Georgia guys running full on right behind him. And they are looking, and they see the ball coming. And they both go up for the ball and manage to knock it out of each other's hands. And not only manage to knock it out of each other's hands, but they manage to knock it upward and forward and into the hands of the Auburn guy, who's by now finally caught on that the ball's there. And so he does the little fumble it around for just a second, grabs a hold of it with 5 yards left to run in for the winning touchdown. It was pretty amazing. It was one of those rare moments in football, actually. But and there was more screaming in our house. But I thought, okay, so but all the commentators all of it was about how lucky this was. What a lucky moment this was. How lucky this was, how lucky this was. And I started thinking about that in the context of the other things I'm speaking of today, and I actually had to sort of add this story into my talk because it reminded me that luck had only a little bit to do with this. Is it lucky, or is it that this kid gets up every single day and goes to practice? Is it lucky, or is it that he has created the ability within himself to run 100 yards way faster than I can run 5? Is it luck, or is it that he has gotten up every day and held a larger vision for himself as a person who makes touchdowns? And I thought, there's so much of that in sports and in celebrity and in successful businesses and all of those things, where there's this idea that there is this overnight success, or that there is this instant success formula somehow. And it reminded me of something I read recently there's this guy named Mike Dooley who does these quotes from the universe thing every day. And he wrote this about the overnight success. He says, invariably, the 5 minutes of inspiration you need to totally rock the world and transform your life will come at the end of hours, weeks, months, and even years of floundering, frivolity, false starts, and seeming hopelessness. Yet when the dream comes true and you glance over your shoulder, you'll see that those 5 minutes were made possible because of everything that led up to them, and that you never needed to be so critical of yourself or of the time that it was taking you to get there. So, there is this space in November for much gratitude and Thanksgiving and thinking about that. And I thought, all of that comes from our choices and the choices leading up to, and how we decide to, whether we're holding this vision for ourselves and we're taking steps to create that in our life. And I know also that the laws of the universe are very interesting in how they work, and that generally, just like we talked a lot last month about tithing, we get to go first. We get to give first, we receive. And it's kind of the same thing with gratitude. We get to be grateful for whatever is. And then we start to see more in our life to be grateful for, which expands our idea of what we can hold in that gratitude. And, all of a sudden, when we're grateful for what is and we're for what is not, we find more to be grateful for. But we always get to start first. I don't know why that is. I just know that it is. And there's so much out there, to be grateful for. There is. There's so much in every day when we really get beyond ourselves even, and even in our own lives. I have to say, I don't know very many people in this room who don't have a lot to be grateful for. And even, I would say, with the recent floods and the difficulties around the floods, people really pulled together and took care of each other, and we are moving through. And then there's this dichotomy of things going on in the world. My heart just is breaking. There's this incredible disturbance in the force. If you're a meditator, I know you're feeling it, because of what's going on in the Philippines, and the washing away of so many people all at once, and the what's going on over there. And we're planning for Thanksgiving and shopping and doing all of these things, and there are people there. There's thousands of people that are still just completely cut off from everything, and they didn't have a lot to start with. And then I keep coming back to here in Greeley and taking care of what's happening here, and this prayer that we've been holding this year for caring for the food needs of our community. And then I received an email from the food bank that I know that, and I put it out on Facebook. They have an expressed need for over 4,000 turkeys this year. And a couple of days ago, I got an email that said they only had like 100 and change. So I don't know how to. I have been in my own head. I'm just going to put it out there because this is one of those things I can't figure out. So I'm like, how do we have a turkey drive and keep them frozen and get them here at one time so that we could get them there? And I haven't been able to figure it out. So if somebody has an idea of how we can, as a community, handle that, would you please see me or come up here during the announcements? Chalice is shaking her head, so I know she's been thinking about it too. Thank you. She thinks about it more than I do even. I've also been noticing in this energetic sphere this amping up about Christmas that's been going on. Anybody else noticing all that? And it's interesting because this year it started in July, I'm pretty sure. It seemed like I started seeing Christmas stuff out in the stores by really it was, I'm not even exaggerating, it was out by September, wasn't it? But all of a sudden, all of the ads, which normally I don't see very much of on TV, but because we're watching football, we did. And a lot of I'm getting all these emails of Black Friday, Black Friday, Black Friday. Already, like 3 weeks ago, I started getting this stuff. And so I'm going to ask you to take a stand with me for one day of giving, of gratitude, and having family time, and whatever whatever that looks like for you, and join with me in not shopping on Thanksgiving Day, because the stores have backed up for Thanksgiving Day. So can we all get on with that? Because like I can hang with Black Friday. I've even done the 6 a.m. thing, and everything's already gone by 6 a.m. now. But Thursday, that's day that doesn't get messed with. Thank you. I know, I'm being self-indulgent right now, in a way. But I also know that you want that space in your life. And so if you get tempted to shop, you can remember that you promised me not to. Okay? Maybe that'll do the trick. I'm sure that's going to do the trick, right? So all this gratitude stuff. And the thing about gratitude that I've learned in my life is that when I'm grateful for all of it, I'm happier. I'm just happier. And all of that stuff, all of that, the choice to be grateful, the choice to be happy, all of it is choices. It's all choices that we make. But I think that it comes from not just staying, well, right now, today, I choose to be happy in this moment. It also comes from continuing to hold a vision for ourselves and to continue to take the steps every day, the practice, the whatever, the spiritual practice. Nobody becomes a guru overnight any more than anybody becomes a touchdown maker overnight. It just doesn't happen. So it's up to us to take those steps every single day, putting one step in front of the other and putting it forward, and being in a place of peace for a few moments a day where we can find that spiritual practice that leads us to our own peace of mind and our own zone of calm, so that we continue to make choices that support our own happiness and that support our own expression and expansion in the world. Now, Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of Science of Mind and one of the founders of New Thought, wrote, "Our word power can be spoken in fullness only as we recognize the unity of all life. Only as the good we desire for the self includes all others. This does not mean that we should hesitate to use the law for personal benefits, for the law responds to everyone who uses it. It merely means that we have no exclusive use of it. It is important that you should be well, happy, and successful, but these are effects. These are effects flowing from the mountaintop of your vision, where you have learned to speak the real creative word, the word of real power, the word of life, because it is the word of love and the word of unity." What I hear in this is that to have a really great vision for ourselves, to be truly expressive and expansion and happy in the world, to live full on in that very big and wide way that we talk about, is to remember that this is a universe of unity. And so the really big thinkers and the really big doers and the people who really make a difference have always remembered that their vision must include within it something good for others. And that seems really simple, in a way, doesn't it? That we can just include others in that, because really when we're grateful, it can't help but pour out of us. And we become different in how we respond to the world, because we're not looking at the world as a place that's going to take from us or that's going to be scary. We're looking at the world as a place that is going to be supporting us and coming to in alignment behind us, in a way, to help us express in a larger way. Because that's really what it's doing, if that is what our thinking and all of that pre-thinking and all of those choices and steps that we've made are holding us in. Because we can make the choice to look at the world in another way, to look at the world as a scary place or a place where where we're not going to be loved or we're not going to be cared for, and that's what will happen for us. But nobody in here is doing that, so we don't even have to really talk about that, because we know better, right? Because this is what we do, so we know better. We know we're creating this experience that we have, that everything in our life is something that we've already created, and that we have no choice but to continue to create. Our choice is what we create or how we create it. So I was talking to my friend Jack about this. I hadn't talked to my friend Jack for a while. And he reminded me of a story by a Native American gentleman in his column, his wisdom years. And I thought this was a great story to share with you for this Thanksgiving period. He starts his story by speaking of his youth. He was part of a tribe, and in his youth he got angry at the people around him. Now his tribe did not actually have the word I as part of their language. Their word was we. And so he had a disagreement with another young person in his tribe. But in that disagreement, there was no word I did this or you did that. It was we did this. It's an interesting shift. Try it for a couple of days, not using I, but using we in your head. I wouldn't do it with your kids because they'll get very confused. So he goes through this period of feeling angry, and he starts to separate himself and disenfranchise himself from this group of people, and he leaves. He decides to leave. But what he says something very interesting. He says that no matter what he realized later in his life is that no matter where he went, his tribe went with him anyway. And so did his anger, and so did his separation and the things that he was choosing for himself until he stopped making those choices. But then in his later years he wrote this. He says, I am a good buffalo eagle, hear my words. The Creator gave all two-legged beings a sacred gift. We call this the gift of choice. Regardless of where we are born, all come to earth with this gift. Along with this gift of choice, all two-legged beings have a sense of knowing right from wrong from the one who stands within. Therefore, the gift of choice allows us to choose knowingly. Now, before I go on with the story, I want to that is an interesting thing to me, because we think that we have to learn right from wrong, and we think that we have to learn, and some, with our kids, yes, that's the thing, but we think that we have to somehow learn all of this thing that we talk about all the time, all of this, make good choices, and really it's within us. That voice is within us if we stop and ask the question, does this support my greater expression in the world? Or does this take away from that? And the answer from within, from God, from Spirit, from our own soul is always very clear. Now, whether we like the answer or not is a completely different story. But in this story, we hear the answer very clearly all the time. He goes on to say, my Pauline, the woman of my heart, states that in her Navajo language, life is a walking, a journey. So if life upon Mother Earth is a journey, there are two ways to walk. By applying the gift of choice, we can choose to walk forward, or we can choose to walk backward. Because we choose knowingly with that inner wisdom self. With every step we take forward or backward, we are accountable. Because we are accountable, there are consequences. Consequences, however, are not chosen. They might be delayed, but by and by they will come. We all know that. Well, I know that from experience. Not always in the really good ways. I have not always walked forward. I know you all have, but He goes on to say, forward walking choices are rewarded with consequences that light the way to peace, happiness, joy, comfort, knowledge, and wisdom. Backward walking choices bring to the two-legged beings consequences of misery, despair, and darkness. My young friend, when the days of your walking begin to draw to a close, you will know that I speak the truth. Whether we walk among our people or alone among the hills, happiness in life's walking depends on how we feel about others in our hearts. Happiness in life's walking depends on how we feel about others in our hearts. We travel only as far and as high as our hearts.